Hey everybody, I'm Derek here, and today I have my friend Zichin, or you can call him Lucas. This guy is an absolute genius when it comes to planning everything. He's an engineer by trade, and we met how many years ago, Lucas?
We met when we were 19.
We were 19, 18 years old in college. He used to teach me chemistry, and
So
now
about 9 years.
and
Almost a
now
decade.
this guy is working with a company. It's some form of a venture builder for e-commerce companies. They fundraised 100 million ringgit last year, I think. And,
2 years ago.
and he worked his way up to become the right-hand man for the CEO, something like that, right? So I think that's a lot we learned for him today. If you are someone who's building a career, something like going on the path of a COO or an integrator, or someone who is just really good at getting shit to work, right? This would be, I think, a very good video to watch and to learn from our friend here. So, hey bro,
Yep.
that's the intro. I think for now, I just want to understand, maybe introduce to us
A bit about myself.
what makes you you.
I think personally for myself, I don't like day-to-day work. I knew that since a very young age, which I didn't choose the engineering path. At some point, I knew that I like to solve problems. I like to, and if you want to know what strategy does, right, in RPG in particular, the strategy role, actually what we do, we are actually like the Navy SEALs of the company.
Oh.
That's how I will brand it, right? So I myself, my official title in RPG is actually the strategy lead. So I help my CEO as well as the co-founders and all the head of departments with all the problems they may face, right? So either from decision making all the way to planning, depending on priorities and all that.
So you're the brains lah.
I try to help. Yeah, they are the main brains. So they are the visionary. I try to help to break it down into more digestible steps for the team.
Okay, and then the team executes.
Correct.
Right. So you're like the little bridge between
Yes.
the real visionaries and the
Yep.
ones on the ground making
Yep.
it happen. Right.
Yep.
Amazing. Super important. Right. That's
Yeah.
the big bridge that I think a lot of companies don't have. Tell us a bit about yourself. Actually, I knew you since last time. Maybe let's go back to the past when you were 18 years old. Who were you back then?
Who was I?
Who
back
were
then?
you like deep down inside? I'm sure we all grew, right? I think you grew a lot as a person. I knew you since so many years ago. Maybe you could share with us who you were. I want to just share with people how you go through this journey, going from a normal random dude to like someone who's like a right hand man of a big company.
I think myself, I think who I was has never really changed. I think I've always been that. I genuinely love to solve problems. So I think what gets me excited is always to do new things, solve different kind of problems, right? And even back in uni, right, I was already like, I had a meal prep business as well. So this was not foreign to me. Like I get energized by making revenue or growing and finding new ways to do things, either optimizing or like automating things.
So you were always a problem solver,
Yeah.
basically, even since your college days.
Correct.
Okay, so that was college. Then you went on to university.
Yep.
What was the biggest impact university made in your life?
I think in university I was quite sure that I thought I wanted to take a more traditional route, right?
Which is?
Work a few years in engineering and then learn the trade, start your business, that kind of thing, right? But I think in second year of engineering, I realized that engineering is no different. It's like your lawyer as your accountant, right? You go in, you follow, and I really thought about it. Do I really want to live like that? I think in some sense, right, I was always counterculture. I like to ponteng sekolah. I don't like to study. I actually
Sekolah means skipping school.
yeah, I skipped school, right? And I mean, I'm not trying to brag, but I don't go to class, but my results are good. But not because I don't. I find that I have a better way of studying, right? I find what works for me. I don't follow what traditional people say that, okay, you have to go to class, you have to do X number of homeworks, right? I find what's optimized for myself. And at the same time, I get to enjoy what I like to do.
Yeah, because from a first principles perspective, what constitutes you getting a good result, right?
Correct.
It's just understanding the inputs and outputs of examinations.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if you go for class or not. If you could solve the problem, you solve the damn problem, right?
Yes.
So that's good. Most people don't have that kind of mindset. Is
Yeah.
there something else in particular that you can share, or it's just something you were born with?
I think it's something that you're born with.
Really?
Because I think to some extent, because I've hired a lot of people in my career.
No, this was in uni. You haven't hired anyone.
Back in uni days.
Yes.
So back in uni, then I would say, maybe I'm born with it. But I'm saying that now, like in few years after working and I've hired a lot of people, I would say that there is some people who are born with it, and some people, because it's something that you cannot change.
Right.
You just hate listening to what people tell you to do. You always want to find better ways. You always want to do different things.
What kind of roles do you put these people in?
Okay, I actually like to put them so finally in RPG, I actually put them in the strategy. So strategy, we have a very high, I would say I hire people with a high caliber, and I have a very high standards requirement to become to join my team. The minimum amount of interview, the rounds is about 5.
What do you vet for?
So the first thing I vet for is technical skills. So I give them technical problems to solve, either some kind of financial problem, operational problem, and all that, and I'll see whether they're able to crunch numbers to solve the problem, right, using their own unique ways. And it's very vague. I give them very vague questions.
Can
for
you
example,
give us an example?
Yeah, I can definitely. So a very quick example is, okay, you have X number of stocks. I have X number of targets. Propose how much do you want to buy. I give you X number of budget. That's it. And I give you the raw data. You go and figure out. And you have to propose to me what is the for example, top 10 SKUs that you want to focus on. What's the top 10 SKUs that you do not want to buy? And everything has to come with a logic.
Amazing. I freaking love that because it proves, it challenges someone's, number one, effort to even do the challenge.
Yep.
Number two, the problem solving skills.
Yep.
They need to go and think for themselves. There's no, okay, step 1, do this, step. You create your own step 1, step 2, step 3.
Yes.
That is so damn important. I want to ask, what's the salary range for these kind of roles?
Easily, I would say for an associate, like let's say if you're a fresh grad, and of course different levels I judge them differently. For associate, 4 to 5K would be solid. Senior associate, 7 to 9K.
What's the difference between a senior associate and an associate?
I think it's the way they present data. The only big difference is the way they present data. How they present their thoughts.
Are you looking for just data analysts then, or no?
No, you're looking at problem solve, because the next part of the cycle, right? So once you have the technical case, typically we have a case study, right? So we give them a very simple question. I'll just say, I have this new brand. I want to start an ice cream business. I want to target this customer. Can you come up with a plan for me?
Okay.
Yeah, and they have to do that. They have to come up with a branding strategy.
With the rise of LLMs and ChatGPT, do you see more and more ChatGPT submissions?
No.
No.
Because these kind of questions, right? I would say you would, straight off the bat, you'd be able to tell it's a ChatGPT.
I know you're able to tell, but are there more people just taking the easy way out and just...
No, because they can't solve it. They will realize they can't solve it.
Okay, okay. Wow. Who created this challenge?
Myself.
Wow, that's amazing.
Because these are the jobs I actually deal with, right? So if you, like I said, how I brand strategy, especially in RPG, how we do it, right? And of course, strategy in every company is different. Mr. DIY, in Grab is different, but more or less we share the same thing, right? You actually act as an internal Navy SEALs. And what the Navy SEAL do, right? If you look at the Army, they have your Marines, your Air Force, and they have very specific roles. The Air Force does Air Force things, right? They pilot. The Navy, they protect the sea, right? But the Navy SEAL, what they do is they have to do everything. They need to know how to jump off of planes. At the same time, they need to know how to man the ship. They need to know how to fight in like different terrains, right? And what we do is we need to be able to learn fast of everyone's department, because HODs, they don't have time to give you 3 months to sit into the department and figure out the problem. They will tell you, hey, today, I'm going to give another example, right? Supply chain, right? I'm going to use an operation problem. So today, we keep running into a problem where we are ordering just in time, or we don't have a proper cycle. How we solve it? Immediately the next thing you have to ask is it a process problem? Is it a people problem? Is it people who are not able to execute, or is it a process, or is it the systems governing is not right?
It's a logic tree that you have to go through to understand.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're just going to be all over the place. You don't know how to solve this
Yes.
problem, right? So I'm guessing an engineering background played a role in this, right?
I think it helped a lot.
Computational thinking,
Yes.
breaking down problems. That's very good. Before we continue even any further, can you share with us what is RPG? Because I think we skipped that part.
Sorry, yeah. So RPG today, we are a multi-brand, we are omni-channel brand builder. So what we do is we actually the business model we're using is actually a house of brands. So you think about traditional house of brand players are like Procter & Gamble. Do you know that?
Yes.
Yeah, Procter & Gamble. Uniqlo is a good example.
Unilever.
Unilever. Yeah. So what we do is we have a few brands under us. So we have 5 main brands under us. So we have Montego, which is the most popular in Malaysia, Singapore.
Montego, okay.
Yeah. Then Cosmic Cookware is a cookware brand. And the remaining are apparel brands. So 1000 Miles, Bottom Labs, and UB. So each of it has its specific niche. So how we came about is that how RPG starts brands, right? How we incubate brands is we typically look at the market, we look at what works in the US, and we try to assess whether there is a niche in this market as well, right? So I can tell you a bit of the brand story. Right? So Montego, the brand story behind it was that you don't just want a thermal flask, you want the thermal flask that looks good. That was just as simple, right? And our inspiration was Hydro Flask. Cosmic cookware as well. You don't want just another stainless steel, another Tefal. You want something that's healthy. So the inspiration of Cosmic cookware is that we are a ceramic. At the same time, we are colorful cookware. Then 1000 Miles is activewear, but mainly towards travelers.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. One thing that a lot of people will say is that, okay, cool, you're making it look nicer and it's just replicating a brand that works already, right? How are you going to make money from this? People will ask these kind of things. And people ask, what's your moat? How would you answer this?
I think our biggest moat is that phrase, right? So if I were to boil down what RPG does, right, really it's just we are a omni-channel brand builder. Our moat is that we are omni-channel. So what omni-channel means, right? And a lot of people confuse, a lot of people who don't do, I guess, if you're not in the consumer goods game, right? You confuse what is multi-channel and omni-channel. Multi-channel means I spray and pray my product everywhere, right? I sell it online, offline. Omni-channel has those elements as well. But what we do center is that we have the customer as the center element. We follow where the customer and place the products, what makes sense, right? So Montego is a good example. Of course, we have your Shopify, Shopee, Lazada, and TikTok, right? And we got into live stream past 2 years, and that's done very well for us as well. We caught the trend, we caught the TikTok trend and the live stream trend in time. The next thing, right, is we got to know who these customers are, and next is look for B2B partners, right? So we look for cafes because we know that your typical uncle, aunties, they won't buy an 80 ringgit, 100 ringgit bottle that looks good, a thermal bottle that looks good, right? But we do know who this attracts, Gen Zs. They like what's sexy, right? It's like buying an iPhone like that. So we go to cafes that they go to, we go to malls that they go to, we go to other touch points they go to. Recently, we got into Sengq instead of Sengheng, right? Because Sengq is a higher end crowd.
Right. So I understand whatever you just mentioned. Thanks for sharing. Now I get a way better idea. To be honest, I didn't even know before this. But great. And what's your role in all this? Basically planning where to go, where to deploy capital.
Yes. So you call it right on the dot, right? So at the highest level, I help the group to decide what projects to take on. So as entrepreneurs, right, and we're RPG entrepreneurs, right, our founders, and I believe you can say this yourself, you have a lot of ideas because you're visionaries. You see the world differently, right? And my job is to take that vision and break it down to analyze it first and to see whether, if I break it down, is it actually executable? And we have the capability to do it. So oftentimes, right, what you're looking at today, what RPG has achieved, right, is actually, one project scrapped out of 50.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a lot of ideas.
There's a lot of like in the background, a lot of A/B testing, a lot of research, a lot of like just pilot projects that
didn't make it out. Yeah.
How much of your decision making came from gut versus data?
So I would say majority is data driven, but oftentimes, right, sometimes, right, is those little few that pass through, that we scrap the data away and say, okay, what do we really believe in the world will look like, right? And actually one of our biggest decisions was to go offline, and it has worked miracles for us. So a traditional DCC player, right, will tell you that, offline won't work, which is why they went online, right? And offline, there's so much, true enough, there's a lot of other things you have to deal with, right? Unlike online where, you need a very small lean team to do, and as long as you have a few marketing specialists, that's done and dusted. You just push products, push ads, done. Drive people into your business.
I think there's a lot of D2C brands that are just running fully on ads, right?
Yes.
Would you say the future for them has to be omni-channel as well, or no?
Definitely.
And I can't run away from that.
There's nothing high, and I think that it's not. If DTC players haven't learned this, I would say they're definitely
struggling by now already, lah.
The traditional players are learning.
Yeah.
If you look at most traditional players, like one of our today Montego, our competitors, Thermos, right? They're also learning that they can't just be a B2B brand. They're also learning to open their own stores now. So they have their own You have never seen this. You have never seen a Thermos shop before. It's always you go to Giant or Tesco, you see Thermos.
Distributors.
Today they're trying to do that, their own offline store, and they're trying to go online as well. Same for if you look at Sengheng who is a very good example of trying to go omni-channel, right? They were traditionally like, Sengheng has been like, I think at least a 50-year-old to 100-year-old business, very traditional, right? They sell electronics, one of the biggest electronics distributors in Malaysia. Now they are trying to learn how to sell on Shopee, how to sell Lazada. And if you look at, one of the things I'm very impressed by Sengheng, right, being a traditional business, is that they're trying to learn how to generate content on TikTok, do TikTok live stream. Most traditional players wouldn't do that.
And if you don't explore, that's how you slowly die, right? That's why you basically, you start respecting them the moment they put themselves out there, even though it could be somewhat subpar quality, but the fact that they're doing a little bit every single day, every single week, you know that it's trouble, right? It's trouble for brands. Okay, great. So at your current company now, you said you spent a lot of time vetting for talents and finding talents who are really good. How do you keep them?
I think this is something I have to honestly be honest, I'm actually struggling as well, because I think the nature of the job, especially for strategy, is very difficult. I'm not gonna lie, right? If you do join my team, but because, like I said, you have to be good you have to be a generalist, at the same time be good enough to operate it. So besides, of course, the sexy part of what strategy does is we help to vet decisions. You know, we do the analysis in the background, do the competitive research before we say, okay, we should do offline, or we should launch a new brand, right? Or we should launch a new product. That's the sexy part of it. That's a lot of like what people like. That's a very consultant job. But the not so sexy part is sometimes, right, when we propose a brand to launch, we have to do it, right? We have to launch the business, or let's say we have to build a new business vertical.
You don't just do it yourself.
We don't just give the plan, because we also have to do it. Because oftentimes you have only two ways. Either you hire and you hire people to immediately run this, but you don't trust them, or you go and figure out what is happening.
And would you say a big reason why you have to go on the grounds yourself to figure things out is because there's just so much unknowns?
Yes.
You just don't know yet, and it's very difficult for you to ask someone to do this, because you need to just have the skill and ability to iterate on the fly. That's why you need Navy SEALs, because when they land from the helicopter, they don't know what they see. They don't know. Like, you need to learn, like, oh, what if you landed badly? What if you landed on like a mountainy area or forest area? You don't know, right? So it's just being able to catch up from
And what we do is we don't have to run the business long term. Like, we run the brand, but we need to be, an example I will give is, for example, if let's say RPG today wants to start a supplement business, right? We have to go look for the suppliers. We have to go talk to the FDAs and all that. We have to figure all this out. Sure, a big corporate company will hire, the right talent, but they have the money to basically not see like inefficiencies in the company. But for us, right, when we hire a person, and if we do not, so there's two things, right? You don't trust a person. We want to trust a person, but we may not. The other thing is, if we don't know, right, the industry, or we don't know the game well enough, this person can bullshit us.
And you get killed, basically, right?
They can tell us that, hey, my ads are performing well. This is the industry standard.
Bullshit you, True. So how do you know enough to not be bullshitted?
So I think the thing is that we always, for strategy, our standard is we have to run the business at least 6 months to 1 year.
Who's we? The strategy team.
The team, yeah.
So the strategy team actually incubates the idea and launches it themselves for at least 6 months
to 1 year before we hire. While we are doing that, we hire people to take over.
That's honestly something that...
So that, because we know, we have to also acknowledge one thing. I'm not an expert. We are not the experts. But we must learn. Because if not, we will not understand what problems they're facing is real problems. And if you were to just go out there and hire someone, number one, you don't trust them. Number two, for those who has a proven track record, they're going to be so expensive already, right? Which is, so you have basically no choice but to have an in-ground team on Navy SEALs to go and figure shit out. I love that. I really love that, because I have noticed even in my team, the people who are more generalistic but with a special focus on problem solving, they can solve anything that comes in their way. And that's the kind of people I want to work with. It's so hard to find. I think the unique one, very good strategy team, right? So RBG is still considered, we are still trying to build a very more robust team. Like currently it's a very small team and we don't really have all the skills as yet. A very good one you can look at is either Mr. DIY, which I have a lot of respect for. The other one is Zeus. So if you look at it, right, their strategy team is the one that Zeus, today we all know they are a coffee retail business. But what you don't know is that the Zeus strategy team, what they do is they help to open different retail formats. At the same time, if you look at it, right, they are trying, it's very obvious, right? They're trying to go into canned drinks. They're trying to go into
beans.
They also sell bottles, merch also. And all these are from, if you may not know, these are from the strategy team. Their job is to open the way.
Right.
Incubate the idea and open the way. They don't have to own it later, but they have to try.
That's amazing. Yeah. I think that's something that I feel very like I'm the one doing this all the time myself, and now I understand that this is the role.
It's good to offload it to someone, right?
Not just offload, but have someone to be just there to incubate and see, because I'm so busy, right? I'm the CEO of the business. I'm so busy and I just don't have the ability to see through it. And if someone is just there to give ideas and then execute, I like the idea because no longer just being a consultant and giving numbers and research, it's you actually getting your hands dirty for the first 6 months to a year. Yeah.
And so back to your question, right? Why it's hard to retain is because oftentimes it's the second part. What I realized.
What's the second part?
The part where you have to execute.
Because it's not sexy.
It's very tiring.
Isn't it fun going 0 to 1?
I think a lot of so you are an entrepreneur. You like the journey. I'm quite entrepreneurial myself. Like I'm not an entrepreneur. I consider myself an intrapreneur.
Yeah.
So
perfect.
Entrepreneur
the only
within
difference,
a company.
Entrepreneur within a company, and I think if a company is able to incubate talents like that, that company will go very far. The only difference, I would say, this is something people will ask me. Oh, do I need to be very smart to be an entrepreneur? No. The only difference between an entrepreneur and an employee is the ability to take risk.
Yes.
That's it. The only reason why I'm a businessman is because I can take. I'm not afraid to lose it all compared to you maybe.
So there's entrepreneur, right? An entrepreneur, we just have to try. We just have to love trying.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, like you said, wouldn't be a lot of people be excited? I would say no.
No.
I've hired enough to know that no, a lot of people don't.
And that's something very hard to vet for during the interview. Right?
You can't. I would say it's almost you can't because you can ask them all about work history and like what you would do. You even give them like scenarios, right? How will you solve this?
Okay.
The best consultants or the best strategy people can always talk their way out of it.
Yeah. Okay, my next question. Have you worked in a 10M range company before?
10M range, previously Pop Meals.
What's the difference between a 10M company and a 100M company?
I think the biggest thing, right, is channels. Like so omni-channel, that channels, right? So your product, I like this quote I saw online before, right? A first-time entrepreneur focuses on the product. A second-time entrepreneur focuses on the channels. He doesn't, because when you are building something and a first-time entrepreneur, you really love what you build. You take it as your baby. But a realistic businessman and a big company, right? What they realize is that it doesn't matter what I sell. I can sell a decent, maybe just above average. But as long as my marketing is right, my marketing channels are well built.
But you still need to have a good product, somewhat, right? I mean, I think you guys got to the stage you are today not just because of marketing. Your products are very good and nice.
Definitely. But I would say that in terms of like USP, Montigo is not the best bottle out there. You can get.
There's no big fat innovation there, right?
Yes.
It's a nicer bottle.
Yes, it's just a nicer bottle. And in fact, like if you talk about bigger, fatter innovations, right? You have temperature control, like tech that you can press on it.
Yeah.
I want it at 90, it will boil on the spot.
Oh wow.
Or like things that can keep up to 3 days, 4 days cold, right? We are not that. We are.
But the beauty is in distribution. You guys have very good distribution.
And if you look at Procter & Gamble, they're the same thing.
Okay.
They learned that as long as you have channels, you have your channels to sell and your channels to shout your product. That's where the money is.
I don't know
made.
if you can share this, but is it more online or offline now?
We are 50-50.
50-50.
Yeah.
Wow. So that bet to go offline was a big bet that
we took a very big bet off. And the strategy team was earliest to take the company on omni-channel. So in the early days, right, we were purely online. So we used to have a bigger strategy team, almost 10 plus people. And we had a team that launched the offline store. And the first offline store, I can tell you, was nothing like what it looks today. It was, I would say to some extent, ugly. But I'm very proud we did it because like we didn't know what we're doing. We have no strategy people are not designers by nature, right? We don't know how to look at what looks nice and store, but at least we did it, and we know that hey, we launched the first store, we launched second and third, and we realized hey, it works. That's the important thing, and we eventually got people who actually know how to run retail, who actually know how to design stores to actually run the business, right? So the second part was we had a second team to go do B2B, talking to cafes, talking to corporate clients to branch out that other channel, looking for distributors.
The question I have now then is, how much is too much? How much should you focus on a few channels that worked? I read this book called, I think it's called Traction, where they talk about how do you scale a company, right? And they're always saying that in the early days, just focus on the 2 to 3 channels that give you the most results, forget everything else, because everything else is just noise. But from what I'm hearing from you, it's the everything else that gave you that moat.
Yes.
So how do you navigate this conversation? Because I'm sure some give you better results, some more poor results.
So This is to the argument is 80-20, right? They in the early days of RPG, we were also thinking like that. Like online was very profitable, right? But something we had to change our mindset was that when you go omni-channel and you have these multi-channels, right? Yes, some of it may not garner you that revenue, but what it does is it protects you, right? This you may have maybe 5 channels that are contributing total 10 to 20%, but they give you 50% profit.
Yes.
Bro, that is protection. That's money in your wallet, protected.
Yeah.
And what you're slow to come to realize is that you have channels that give you big revenue but maybe contribute small margins. And you can see this from Amazon. Their strategy is very apparent. They are not making money through Amazon itself, but they are cloud technology.
AWS, right?
Yeah. And all this, having multiple channels, right, it supports each other. So when you start a business, I agree with that philosophy. You have to find that one tool that you can optimize for. But eventually, you need to diversify your risk and use channels to support one another.
Which ties back to your answer on what makes a difference between what's the difference between a 10M company and a 100M
Yes.
company. Right? Maybe from 1 to 10M, focus on 2 to 3
Yes.
channels that work very well.
Yes.
But if it's with time to scale, you
Yes.
need to broaden up your distribution,
Yep.
basically. Okay. Now I want to ask my next question will be on going regional. Because I think you guys started as a Malaysian.
Yes.
Yeah, correct? You started in Malaysia only, and the market in Malaysia, as you and I know, is very small. And you guys made the conscious effort to go global from the very, very, very early stages. What's the hard part? It sounds easy. You just run some ads, right? Get some partners to help you, sell. But what's the hard part? I'm sure it's not as easy as that.
It's hard, and I'm not going to lie. So we went global, and actually, eventually, what we realized was that we had to pull back. Right. So the hardest part about going global is that you don't, unless you have time in the market and you actually to some extent go on the ground, right, to experience what life is there. It's like your marketing will not work. Does that make sense? Because
it does.
A customer,
can you elaborate?
Let's say we're trying to market to an Australian, right?
Okay.
UB was a swim short brand trying to market to Aussie surfers and all that. An Aussie surfer can straight up tell you, this is an overseas brand. Why? The language of the language, the tone, the aesthetics.
So you need to be as localized as possible.
Yes.
It's not as simple as, yay, HQ team, let's just write an ad. Okay. Couldn't that have been circumvented by just having an Australian staff who knows what's up?
So that's the one way to do it. And what we look at other businesses, so like your other DTC players and your bigger brands like Mr. DIY and all that, they did that. So, but for us is that we realized that we could choose to spread ourselves too thin, or we want to focus in Malaysia. So now we're in Malaysia and we want to securely dominate Malaysia.
Dominate first,
yes.
right? Go deep in one
Correct.
vertical first
Yes.
before you. So is that the direction?
Yes.
Okay. That must have been a big direction.
Yeah, it's a very big. I would say it's a very difficult decision for us because it's all about risk, right? I would say 2-3 years ago, we were in US, we were purely, I would say majority digital at that time. We were in US, Australia, Europe, you would say rest of the world, and Malaysia, Singapore, right? And for us to first close down US and subsequently, right, it was very painful. Each step was very painful because we saw the revenue dip and all that, but we had to trust that, hey, we believe in omni-channel, right? So why not focus on something that we believe is the future, then doubling down.
It's also with less is more. You heard of people, right? Because if you're all over the place, it's like, okay, you need more people, more budget, more brain power to go and figure things out. Because you don't know what works. Like just like you mentioned, you just don't know if US works. You need someone to just be on top of things to understand, okay, does it work? Why? Let's solve it, right? Okay, so maybe if I can ask for an advice from you just for myself, should I focus on just Malaysia? What was your decision-making factor ultimately? What sealed the deal for you?
I think the easiest one for us, right, was 2 things. Number one, we believe omni-channel was the future.
Okay.
Right? And because the other countries, we look at it is that we can't, even if we want to, we can't do it now. We can't go omni-channel in those like US and Australia. It has to be online because unless we hire...
You could, technically, you have the funds.
Yes, but it's all about being careful. So why not invest in Malaysia, where we are here? So that goes to my second part. We are here. We know how Malaysians think. We have the networks. We are all Malaysian staff. My CEO and all my founders are all Malaysians, right? We connect to our suppliers, to our 3PLs, all the malls. We can connect to them, right? They already know us, and we can easily access to them.
Okay. So
like,
what
advice for you, right?
Yep.
So in terms of advice for you, like I would say, right, it really depends on your channels. Are you gonna be a single channel multi-country, or are you gonna be a single country multi-channel? That will be
So what was the one that sealed the deal for you again?
So for us was that we wanted to be multi-channel. We were very sure of that. So what this means is that we had to be single country so that we can master it.
Go
in that
deep,
market.
go
Yes.
deep. Because
before we take it and replicate it across.
right. So okay.
Another way you can do it is multi-country and then slowly build out the verticals on each of their country. That's one way to do it also.
Okay, moving forward. So what about yourself? What keeps you excited now?
I think what keeps me excited is the future RPG. Like I'm very confident that we have cracked the code, and like the business model itself is something that not many people can do. Of course, people are trying to learn, but we are 2-3 years ahead already. That's how I would put it, right? And we are going to constantly innovate, right?
Yeah.
What's more exciting? We are innovating Montigo. Montigo is going to be very different from what you see today in stores.
Yeah.
It's going to be very different from 2-3 years later when with what we have in
Jeff
pocket,
Bezos
right?
famously said the results you see from Amazon today is what he's been working on since 10 years ago already, right? So similarly, if someone's just trying to copy you, they're just playing catch up.
Yes.
Right?
So that's what keeps me excited, right? We're always the market leader.
You're always the ones exploring the boundaries, the ones finding, digging the dirt, right?
Yeah.
Okay. No, but like, besides that, how can your company keep you?
How can my company keep me? Well, that's a tough question, man. Like I think it has to come with projects.
What's the thing that keeps you
excited, right?
No, maybe not excited, but just keeps you, because people are there for 2 reasons: to learn and to earn. Either way, wherever you go, to learn and to earn, right? So for you, what's that factor? The learning factor, maybe.
The biggest is definitely the learning. So one thing I've learned a lot from my time here at RPG, right? From all the way from like, and these are like true business experience, right? You can't read it through. You can read it through books. An example is like launching. Something we learned very painfully is that launching any business, you need to give it at least 3 years. That's the philosophy now we go by. If we want to launch a new brand, even if it's failing, we gotta bite the bullet and say give it 3 years, right? Because traditionally, right, if you go to any super traditional players will say give it 5 to 10 years before you start making money. Super new age business thinkers will say, if 6 months I don't have a PMF, scrap this idea, right? That's how you think about it, right? But what we realize is that there has to be middle ground, and 3 years it gives you long enough time to, yes, you'll fail. It gives you enough time to fail, at the same time to learn holistically about the business, enough time in the market to learn about the market itself. So what keeps me excited and keeps me, right, is actually we are always exploring new things, right? So what this means is I have a lot of opportunity to learn. So previously we're in the phase of building omni-channel, and I can share this, right? Now we're in the phase that we believe that we are quite confident in our capabilities, open channels. Now the next thing is what other brands can we do? And so what this means is either we incubate brands or we acquire,
right?
Yes.
Who does the research on incubation versus acquiring? And if you were to incubate, what ideas would you do? Who does all this planning and researching?
So usually ideation comes from many parts of the company. So any ideas thrown, we would usually have a think tank session, right, between the founders and leadership team. We will think about what makes sense, what doesn't. Then in terms of pure vetting, like a strategic research, that's where I'll come in.
Okay, cool. I want to talk a bit about culture.
Yeah.
What makes a strong culture?
Wow, that is a very difficult question. Like this is something that we are sure. I mean,
in your eyes, of course, everyone has a different answer to this, but in your eyes, to build an ideal company with very strong Navy SEAL-like team, people that you respect every day, coming to work, getting excited, that's a big part of staying in a job, right? Imagine if you're in a job and every day you go to office, everyone's like
nonchalant,
not so good, right?
Yeah, they're here to get their 9 to 5, go home. They're not excited about trying new things.
So
right?
it's like we as people who care about the business, we need to be very careful who we let in, because they're not just there. They affect your rock stars. Your rock stars will feel demotivated. It's like So for you, how would you navigate this just for yourself?
I would say the biggest thing is top down. It has to come from the top, right? And I think at RPG, right, the founder set a very good example. They are and it's a very humbling experience, right? At this scale, when we have on almost every channel. Motigo is almost on every channel, and we are about 30 stores, 30 to 35 stores, right? They're still, on ground planning the products themselves. They are on grounds sometimes to go meet the malls and all that. So it's still very hands-on. So culture is top down. As long as you as the CEO or you as the manager, you want your team to look like, if you want your team to look a certain way, you have to act a certain way.
Right, got it.
Yeah.
It's basically, you're like a mirror kind of thing, right?
And it's very easy.
Okay, but for you, what defines good? What's your working style? How?
Okay, so I will just share for my team.
Yep.
So my team, I think the biggest thing, right, is that my management style is I'm hard on the results, soft on the approach. I don't care how you do it. You want to cheat, you want to go out and find, talk to people to get the answers, is fine, as long as we deliver, right? And that should ultimately be how things be, right? Everything should be result driven. And when you're when you're starting up, nobody cares about what kind of effort you do. Unlike corporate, right? If you look at corporate companies, they'll talk about how many hours they spend working, how long, how many resources.
Nobody cares, man.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Unfortunately, that is metrics they like to measure their things by, right? How hard they work. Dude, nobody cares how many hours you put into this project.
Okay.
If it works,
so that's
it works.
the culture that you have in your team?
Yeah.
Okay. What kind of people cannot stay in your team? You get them to go. The most what draws the line for you?
I think what draws the line for me, right, is people who are, first things first, they are not curious, right? Because in this role, you always have to want to know, right? People who need to be spoon-fed. Secondly, is people who cannot get their hands dirty. I think that's...
Say again?
People who can't get their hands dirty, right? So they get picky with what they want to do, right? Oh, I don't want to do this project. I don't want to do this project because, So I told you a lot of strategy. There's also the planning. That's the sexy part, right? Giving ideas. That's what a lot of people like because that boosts their resume. But the not so sexy part is actually building the business, right? A lot of people can't get their hands dirty and they oftentimes opt out.
So they just leave.
Yeah.
All right.
And for myself, even if they want to stay, I would ask them to leave also.
Right, because it's just not a good fit anymore. They don't get it, they don't want it, they don't have the capacity to do it anymore, right? Okay, amazing. I don't have much more anymore, but maybe a big reason why I'm doing all these podcasts and stuff is because I want to get people to maybe speak to the past version of yourself.
Right.
What's something, if there's another Lucas in the alternate universe who's currently 22
a younger
years
me,
old,
right?
a younger you, what would you tell your younger you?
I think don't worry, because I think it's a bit of my nature as well, which is why I'm in this role. I'm always worried. I'm always worried about the future. I'm always planning, making, if you have one backup plan, I have 5 backup plans in my pocket already. But why I will tell myself don't worry, right? Because you'll never know. Like a lot of things in RPG, right? I have the best backup plans. I have everything planned out. Still, when I got hit in the face, when things fail, I realized, you
just gotta that's why you're a Navy SEAL. That's why you
I just got to muscle through it. Yeah.
How hard is it to train problem-solving skills? Like you said just now, some people have it in them. Are you saying on the day itself, on the job, you expect them to have it, and if they don't have it, that's it?
And it's very apparent. It's actually easy. I've hired enough people to know that it's very easy if the person loves it. If the person doesn't have it, right, they just... and it's fact, you need people who want to do mundane BAU jobs.
Correct.
Like, I just want to do it supply chain, or I want to manage the warehouse. It's okay. I don't want to improve the warehouse. I don't want to come with the technology to automate my work. Fine. You need people like that. And it's very apparent, right? Because in our role, you always need to do things better. I will give you time pressure. For example, in my line of work, I know that this project takes 1 week. I will give you only 2 days. And there's only 2 ways out of this. You either crack and leave, or you figure it out. And that's how I assess whether these people can stay.
Okay. How do you project manage? How does project management work in your company? Manage people's tasks. What if they don't do it? What if,
So, like I said, I'm very I'm very hard on results, soft on approach kind of thing. So I don't try to micromanage people. Myself, I like to sit down. Let's say if you're my associate, right? What I'll do is I'll sit down with you. I'll give you the project. I'll say, okay, can you give me what's your expected timeline, right? And I will also try and manage as well. So you give 1 week. I'll say maybe 5 days. So if we both agree, fine. I won't disturb you because I also know disturbing. And oftentimes in our work, you need full focus. You need to be locked in
You need to be in the
figure
flow,
out.
right?
Yes. So I don't want to disturb you, right? But let's say you have failed your timelines again and again. That's when I will start cracking the whip. I try to give people the carrot first, give people benefit of doubt, and give them freedom. But
do you track on a weekly basis?
I try to track on a weekly basis. Yeah.
Weekly, every week basically we sit down, sort that out. This is the deadlines.
Yep.
Then you just go MIA. Don't talk to
Yes.
me until the day comes. You better get it done.
Yes.
Because if it doesn't talk to you and you don't come to me and things don't get done, you cannot.
Yes, that's when I crack the whip and I will project manage my person every day. But
no one likes that, right?
No one likes that, but it's so I have a very good case, right, where I have an intern. She was somewhat like that, but she turned out really well now. Like, I'm very proud of her, right? Like, she was from she struggled mainly not because she was a lazy person, but I think she didn't know how to ask for help or resource. So she just stood there and struggled for 5 days. And
right. She just maybe shy, or she doesn't know what to do, right? She doesn't know. So you as a leader, we need to communicate with her that this is what we expect. We give you a timeline, get it done. If you cannot, go and seek help, right? Don't just suffer.
But eventually I had to crack the whip because I needed to pressure her in a way that, no, even if you're struggling and you don't know, you either have two ways. You either crack or you solve it, right? So if you crack, come and find me. I will help to solve it. So at one point I was managing her daily.
What if someone cracks all the time?
Why someone cracks all the time? It's very apparent. Either they will leave the job, or for me, I'm quite patient. I'm very willing to teach.
You just chill out. You just wait and help.
And I will just continue to apply pressure. Yeah.
Help and apply pressure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my job, I think, as leaders, right? Something I think I saw online recently that a good leader not only like just guides, right? He knows how to apply the right amount of pressure to mold you to the next stage. So I have good cases where, for some reason I got interns who are really good. So one of it was this intern, the same intern, I'm going to refer to the same intern. So she started out as like, she had no Excel skills, zero, like she can't even write sum and all that, right? But now she's now rehired into RPG.
Amazing.
As she's now helping to expand the offline, right? Expand our stores, right? And she has built automations for them, right?
With what?
With Google Sheets.
Really?
Yeah.
She figured it out.
Yeah.
How did she figure it out? She learned herself, Google, whatever.
Of course, through me, right? I sat next to her, and
you had to know how to do it, basically.
Yeah, of course. Yep.
What do you think of Malaysian talents?
I think actually Malaysia, we have a lot of talents, right? And I think the only tricky part is that oftentimes Malaysians, a lot of people think that Malaysians are not the most talented compared to Singaporeans and like Australians and all that, but
not the most what? Talented.
Talented, yeah.
Not really.
Yeah, I don't think so, right? So I've worked with also across different nationalities to know that, hey, Malaysians, to be honest, if you can find that hidden gem, right? Malaysians are actually very humble and they're very willing to get their hands dirty, right? And I can say this, right? Malaysians are very hardworking, right? The average Malaysian is still very hardworking to your average Singaporean, your average Australian.
Really?
Yeah, I will bet my life on it.
Okay, amazing. I think that's about it, bro. Thank you so much for sharing today. Anything else you want to share? Any advice?
I think for entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
I think the biggest advice I would give, right, is that mantra, right? Give 3 years, right? Have enough runway for 3 years. Because if it's 1-2 years, you realize you don't know a lot of things and you quit because you haven't really fully understand the market. So with anything, make sure you have 3 years planned out. Yeah.
Okay. One last thing. You mentioned just now a lot of your work involves learning on the job and just figuring things out. How can someone learn fast? Any tips for people?
Wow, that's a very tricky question. I would say like this is where it comes. Like I said, you're either born with it or you're not.
Really?
Because yes, because
okay, maybe share how do you do it?
How do I do?
Not the problem solving part.
Yeah.
That one is sure. That one takes time to develop. But like let's say for example, someone placed an order. I want to get notified. The team needs to get notified. Okay, so you need to build some kind of automation. Okay, order, process, then send an email to the team or whatever. So you first need to know what tool to use and then on that tool itself how to do it, right? This kind of tactical stuff. Not the shit, how do I automate this, right? It's more like the tactical stuff. You're going to learn something.
Okay. So how do I figure out what to build, right?
Yeah.
I think I think for myself, I always ask, what's that one metric that matters? Right? What's that one? Because there's going to be a lot of, if you go to solve any problem, there's going to be 100 problems bundled within that big problem. But you got to ask yourself, right, at the core, what's that one thing I got to solve? And you just revolve around that.
Yeah, but how do you learn how to use do you Google, do you YouTube?
No.
You just use the tool and just click around and explore.
Sorry, I don't understand.
Like if you have to create something and you don't have the skills to do it, like you said, the girl,
okay.
she does not use Excel, for example.
Right.
How do you suggest someone to learn up fast on the job?
You got to know the end goal. Okay, okay,
basically don't learn every single bells and whistles. Like you said, focus on the one metric to define success of the job and figure it out.
I think I misunderstood the question, so you maybe can cut that out, right? But to answer your question properly, right? How I teach all my associates and all my interns, right? Before you build anything or before you do any research, you got to have a rough idea of what your end goal looks like. Then you will search for it. So an example is that you want to build a tool, right? But you got to know what your front end looks like. Like let's say a simple automation tool is you want to help automate from all your outlets. You have 40 outlets, a central dashboard. What will your dashboard look like? Then you will know what kind of data you need to look for. With what kind of data you need to look for, you know what kind of formulas you need to crunch out.
Got it. So goal in mind, and just solve it based on that very.
And you realize that 9 out of 10 times the goal will always change. But with that initial goal, you will learn how. So I think this is something I like from Sigma School, right? Is that you give projects for people to solve. Because if you learn JavaScript and Python, right, from the entire course, you'll end up learning nothing. So something I would like to share, right, is that I learned JavaScript and Python myself, right?
Okay.
I learned how to code it myself, but if you ask me, do I know how to code extensively? No.
Do you know how to build something from scratch?
Maybe. So, but it depends. I must have a project, right? I know what the end goal is, then I will be able to build towards it.
So it's the same output-based, project-based learning is the most important.
Yes,
right?
it's the most important.
No point following a tutorial from start to end, learning every single bells and whistles, but not being able to build something. Okay, well, one last one. How's your relationship like with your CEO? How do you communicate?
Very good.
What's your working style?
I think we trust each other definitely, right? So he will definitely give me a set of projects, and I will also pounce because I also help other people in this company, right? So oftentimes we manage each other's schedules and times to go. Let's say we want to do a certain thing. So far.
Would you say trust and respect? That's it.
Yes.
Full stop. Yep. Everything will be fine, right?
Yep.
Okay, man. That's all. Thank you so much, bro.
Okay.
That's all.